Dinesh, thanks for joining us here on Breitbart News Daily.
Hey, it's great to be on the show.
So I wanted to talk to you about, because this has been a big topic yesterday, today, at last night's rally with President Trump and Senator Cruz in Texas. This was the first thing that came up. It is in Mexico right now. There is a huge caravan of thousands of migrants from Central America who are bearing down on our southern border. What are your thoughts on this migrant caravan? It seems to me like it's an invasion. They're waving foreign flags. There's criminals contained throughout. There are people who've been previously deported. What are your thoughts on this caravan?
Well, my first thought is it seems really odd that a fairly large number of people, in the thousands, would decide kind of all at the same time to march 2,000 miles to the United States and try to get in. This looks to me cooked up, orchestrated, paid for. I say that because there's no famine in Honduras that is creating a flood of refugees. This is just a very odd thing to happen right before the election, and it looks like it's been orchestrated. I can't prove that, but the proof is in the coincidence or the oddity of all these people making an independent decision. Also, they're making somebody is giving them shelter for the night. They're getting security and medical care. So something is subsidizing this caravan on its way to the United States. Now, I agree. If for the United States to let this in without blocking it, hopefully it'll be blocked in Mexico. The Mexicans did say something to the effect that they would do that, but they don't seem to have done it yet. And I think Trump is I was at the rally last evening. It was fantastic. A piece of Americana. I was my first political rally and my first chance to see Trump in his element up close. And he seems very determined that this is not going to be allowed in the United States. And I think politically, by the way, that's very good for him and for the Republican Party.
Mm-hmm. And so the rally last night, there were, I don't know, thousands and thousands of people outside. There were apparently thousands that were camping out the night before to get in. This was probably the biggest rally that we've seen in his administration. What was the energy like there? I didn't know you were there. That's pretty amazing. What was the energy like in the room? What was the crowd like? Tell us about the rally in Houston there.
This was a rally that to me showed the unification of the Republican Party, because the Trumpsters were there. There were people in MAGA hats and Trump outfits and so on. And we saw those guys during the campaign. But there were also a lot of traditional Texans, traditional Republicans, a lot of GOP VIPs. And this is important because some of these people were resistant to Trump. And of course, a lot of them were for Cruz, but against Trump in 2016. And it's very clear now that just as Cruz and Trump symbolically have come together, so too the GOP base seems much more united and fired up. So I think that this is bad news for Mr. Beto O'Rourke, masquerading Hispanic. Here in Texas, he's got more yard signs, but I think Cruz is going to end up with a lot more votes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that's right. I think Senator Cruz is gonna win this thing in the end. There's no doubt about that. He's gonna win handily too. I don't think Beto O'Rourke can raise as much money as he wants to from Wall Street in Los Angeles, Hollywood. But the fact of the matter is that, by the way, I keep hearing stories about Beto, and he's got. There's Beto t-shirts going around in New York and California, right? Like, it's like, what? That's not Texas, right? Like, he's not running in New York or California. I think he's running for president down the road. That's what he's really trying to do. But the fact of the matter is, the unification of the party, I think that's exactly right. It was really something to see Trump go through all the lawmakers who were there. Like John Cornyn was there. We saw Cruz there, obviously. We saw all the congressmen there, the governor, the lieutenant governor. It was really something to kind of see the team together here, because what we face on the other side of the aisle, and you know this better than anybody, is the mob. right? I mean, look at how the left is behaving, how they behaved during the whole Kavanaugh hearings, and that's not unique to Kavanaugh. That's how they're going to be if they get any power. So, can you tell us about what are like some of the stakes in this midterm election? Because I think that's the important thing. That's what's really brought the team together here.
Well, I think that there's been an increasing recognition that the Democratic Party has become gangsterized. And what I mean by that is not merely that they're willing to use the weapons of the state against their opponents, but they really don't believe in those fundamental rules of fair play or free speech that, quite honestly, most of us who are on the other side have taken for granted and kind of assume that we all agree on certain basic things. Well, they don't. I saw this in my own case up close, but it's very obvious now more generically. I think the significance of the Kavanaugh hearings was this, that there were a lot of Republicans who thought that the reason the Democrats were misbehaving is because of Trump, that Trump is sort of this flawed character, and Trump's excesses are bringing out, if you will, Democratic bad behavior. But then here we nominate, a Boy Scout of impeccable, not only intellectual reputation, but somebody who is of impeccable moral character. All the people who've been around him for decades testify to the fact this is a really great guy. And the left went after him with an unbelievable venom. And that showed the ordinary Republican that no one is safe, that the animus is not merely against Trump, it's really against all of us. And that's why we have to come together, really just as the Republicans did in 1860, that was going on the other side.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think we're seeing that in a lot of places across the country, and we saw and you kind of saw this almost unification during the whole Kavanaugh hearings. I mean, some of the heroes that we saw on the Republican side out of that. I mean, Susan Collins' speech on the floor of the Senate was like Cicero in the well of the Roman Senate. I was cheering her on the whole way through. I was shocked to hear her give that amazing speech. Lindsey Graham. These are people that we've disagreed with from the conservative side of the party, and inside these intra-Republican Party squabbles over the course of the past several years. But the fact of the matter is that we recognize that on the other side is a mob that is sometimes violent. That if they get power, I mean, it's going to be dangerous for Americans.
One of the great achievements of Lincoln in 18 spine of the Republican Party, which was very weak-kneed because of the fear of secession and the fear of ongoing secession, and the accomplishments of Trump has been to create the new Susan Collins, the new Lindsey Graham. This is a Trump accomplishment. Trump has actually held firm at a time when Republicans were going weak. And the Republicans have seen Trump do that, and they've seen that, you don't have to kowtow to the media. You don't have to run for cover every time you're attacked. You can actually run towards the attackers. And sometimes that's the best strategy, to be on the front line and to do that. And I think it's fun to see Republicans who get the message now. And I think if Trump is reelected, we'll see a completely different Republican Party in 8 years than we did at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's a refreshing thing. I think that's what the Republican Party needed, was they needed this kind of a jolt, and we saw them kind of lagging there throughout the Obama years. But the fact of the matter is that there is, in 2 weeks from today, there is on November the 6th, there's an all-important midterm election. Obviously, Senator Cruz will face re-election down in Texas. I think he's going to defeat Beto O'Rourke, or Robert Francis O'Rourke. Let's call him by his real name, Robert Francis O'Rourke. He's not a Hispanic. He's not Beto. He's Robert Francis O'Rourke. Senator Cruz will defeat Mr. O'Rourke very handily on that one. But a number of other senators and congressional races are coming up on November 6th. Republicans have a very narrow path to potentially holding the House majority. What do you think happens on November the 6th? Do Republicans pull this thing off? What do they need to do to get there?
I'm hardly a kind of professional prognosticator on this, but I am sort of on the front, the level of enthusiasm on our side, and it's pretty strong right now. I think, ironically, this not only was Kavanaugh in the fire, but this Caravan thing has backfired on the Democrats. I mean, look, anyone who looks at this kind of, unknown horde moving inexorably toward us has got to think, A, where are the rules of the game? I mean, where is the sense that we're a nation under law? And second of all, if those guys showed up outside your house, I mean, even every Democrat would shut their door and call 911. So this idea that we should let the country be a garbage disposal for just about anybody who wants to show up without any effort to vet them, without any sense of what's at stake, without the sense that we have a rule of law, I think that this gives a sort of existential dimension to an election that would otherwise be merely pedestrian, ordinary. And so I think it's going to bring out more Republicans in November, and that bodes well for holding the House and increasing Republican majorities in the Senate.
Mm-hmm. And so now, obviously, Death of a Nation is coming out on October 30th. And you really go into a lot of and I was there at the premiere here in DC with sitting there with Don Jr. and Kim Guilfoyle. We had them on the show yesterday. One of the things I mean, you really go into is just how off the rails the left is, and to the point where they've really tried to put forward whatever they can to try to derail the momentum that we're seeing on the grassroots movement on the Republican side in the era of Trump. Can you tell us a little bit about the film and then where people can go to see it and get a copy?
Yes, the film derails the two big left-wing narratives on fascism and racism. I mean, the fascist card and the race card have been the two incendiary cards the Democrats have been playing against, not just against Trump, but against conservatives for a while now. And both are based on a big lie. And the film unravels the lie, not just historically, but it shows that the real fascists and racists, even today, are on the progressive left and not on the Republican side. No, the parties did not switch sides. No, the fascists weren't in bed with the Republicans. They were actually in bed with FDR, at least in the early 30s. So all of this is documented, demonstrated in the movie. The good thing is it's available for digital download now. So you can go to Amazon or iTunes or Google Play and watch the movie now. The physical DVD comes out October 30th, just in time before the election. So I'm very excited about it. The movie has done well in the theater. I think it will do even better in DVD because, more people today like to watch these movies at home.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, Dinesh D'Souza, always a pleasure. Thank you for joining us here on Breitbart News Daily.
I appreciate it.